No, listen, that's not very Christian. I'm from Kansas City. Wow, hopefully a lot of you accept Jesus before the day's over. And we both have Joe Montana in common, but I get it. I get it. People hate winners. I get it. I love Patrick Mahomes. You gotta love that guy. Again, some of you aren't clapping. He's a Christian. He gives about half of his income to kids in the foster system, but he's still a Christian. You will be with him in eternity, or maybe you won't. But just wanted to keep this right here so that we all have this front and center. It's gonna be a stumbling block for some of you, and you know what? It's a test. It's a test of focus. Really, Kurt is a mentor to me and Andrew, and I just love so many people here. I love Pastor Ray. I love the Jasons, the Crow, and the Kane, and I just so many people here. If you're visiting and you don't have a church, this is the place I would attend if I lived in this area. I live down in Los Angeles because I enjoy insanity. So I hope that if you don't have a church, please think about attending this church. I want to make a statement here, and I think some of you will agree with me. Some of you may not, but hopefully by the end of this quick session, you will. Hear me out on this. How you talk to your kids about sexuality makes all the difference in the world. Let me repeat that. How you talk to your children about sexuality makes all the difference in the world. What you say to your children about sexuality makes all the difference in the world. Because we have a whole lot of parents in the world. They're intentional about sports, intentional about getting their kids to church, intentional about getting their kids to student ministry, intentional about getting their kids to school on time, intentional about being there when their kids are there, but they never have conversations with their kids about sexuality, or if they do, they look at it as one conversation. Oh, gotta have the conversation, of birds and the bees, so that'll be fun. And so many people, not you people, so many people look at the talk about sexuality with your kids as just one talk, when it's really a journey. That you've got to start when they're young, and if not, there's no time like today, no matter how old they are. Now, hear me out on this. I know some of you in here are single. Some of you in here do not have children, but you have grandkids, you have nieces and nephews. You are friends with your friends' kids in a non-creepy way. You have kids in your life. And what you do and how you talk about it matters. You see, because at the end of the day, your family is not about you. At the end of the day, your marriage is really not about you or your spouse. You say, Caleb, yes it is. Well, yeah, you put your spouse before your own needs. That's what I do. I keep my mouth shut. My wife is a fiery Latina. I made one mistake when we first got married. We were getting in an argument about something. I can't remember what it was, but I remember what I said because that became the new argument. I looked at her and I said, you're acting just like your mother. Never again. But we really do. We look at marriage as the life that we want. We look at marriage as just being all about ourselves or all about our kids for the head of the family or all about our spouse. And yes, it is about those things. But you know what? Primarily, your marriage, your family is all about Jesus Christ. Period. So here's the deal. Like, you know how we used to do animal sacrifices in the Old Testament? I say we, I mean the people of God. And some of you are just really happy you weren't born in the Old Testament times because you couldn't kill little lammy, you would convert to some other religion. You're like, no way, not not little Petey, not bringing him to the temple, right? You just wouldn't do that. But all these animal sacrifices never took away the sin. Really, it was Jesus all along. They set up the foreshadowing. They set up an understanding of Jesus' substitutionary atonement on the cross. Marriage, the whole purpose of it is to foreshadow the ultimate marriage between Jesus and the church. That's why when we get to heaven, there is no marriage, because the church and Jesus will be married. That is the fulfillment of it. And you have got to use your family. You've got to use your marriage. You've got to use everything you are for influence, and it starts with your kids. Now, real quick, Kurt told you a little bit about me. My parents were both professors. They divorced when I was 2, and both of them went into same-sex relationships. My dad had several different friends, but my mom was in a 22-year monogamous relationship with a woman named Vera. And so I was raised by 3 gay parents my entire childhood. My parents moved to Kansas City. You gotta let me brag. Do you know how many years? Like, we've never won. And do you know how difficult it's been? Hold on. All right, I'm done basking. So when my mom and, Vera, the psychologist, they were together 22 years till Vera died of cancer. They became activists. They joined the local board of directors for GLAAD. When I was growing up, they took me with them, preschool, elementary age, middle school, to bars and clubs and pride parades and campouts and house parties and activist events. And I remember thinking how ugly Christians seemed. I really, really did, because I remember this one pride parade I was in. There were all these quote unquote Christians on the corners holding up signs saying, "God hates you, no room for you." When people from my mom's parade would go try to talk to them, these so-called Christians would spray them with water and urine, saying, "This is what Jesus thinks of you." Growing up in the 80s, I saw Christian families ignoring their young sons who were dying of AIDS because they were taking a moral stand. No, you're not. There's a difference between taking a moral stand and being a moron. And so I never wanted to be a Christian, because here's what I thought. If Christians are this bad, I can't imagine how awful Jesus Christ is. I think we really underestimate how much our attitude, words, actions, and what we write on social media will either encourage somebody to follow Jesus or discourage it. And so by the time I was 16, I was sneaking out at night. I had no worldview, living it up. My hair was down to here, and God removeth. And is this funny? I didn't know this was a roast. Thank you. Thank you. It's gonna be a good day already, I can tell. And so when I was 16, I got invited to this Bible study led by a high schooler for high schoolers. And I thought this was gonna be perfect. I'm gonna go and be a pretend Christian, and I'm gonna dismantle their faith. And that worked out real well, as you can tell. At the age of 16, I had never stepped foot in a Christian household before. And I'm not trying to insult you with how I'm getting ready to describe their house. If my description of their house is your house, more power to you. I'm just saying it looked different to an unchurched kid who had never been in a Catholic or Christian household before, or an unbeliever. I walked in, it looked like these people had raided a Bible bookstore. They had pictures, Bible bookstore pictures. I remember thinking, why do these people have framed pictures of a sheep and a lion with Bible verses? I had never been in a house where somebody framed a picture of an animal they didn't own. Then my friend came up from the basement and said, "Well, thank you for being here. Once you join us downstairs, we circled up. Let's go down to the basement." I'm thinking, oh, this is the beginning of a horror movie. I'm not even making it past the opening credits. And we get down there, everybody's reading from 1 Corinthians, which I can't find because I didn't know God put a table of contents in the Bible. So I'm in 1 Chronicles, read a verse about some dude getting impaled, and then they're like, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm in 1 Chronicles." They're like, "Oh, you're in the Old Testament." I'm like, "Is there a new one? Is there updated 2.0? And I kept on studying, and I realized that Jesus was not like the people on the street corners, that he had very real theological convictions that ran countercultural to society, not anti-cultural, but countercultural. And he also had very authentic expectations for his followers and how they should live in holiness, but also in how they should treat people with love and grace. But he also had relationships that were very real with people who were nothing like him, people that the religious elite of his day would have nothing to do with. And then I started studying what the Bible had to say about sexuality, intimacy, relationships, so on and so forth. And I came to two conclusions I still hold today. Number one, I believe that God designed sexual intimacy and affection to be expressed in a marriage between a man and a woman. But I also believe that my biblical beliefs never give me permission to devalue another human being. That these are my beliefs about intimacy, marriage, relationships. They should never impact how I feel about another person, what their dignity, worth, value is, because everybody has the same equal intrinsic value. Everybody is somebody that God created and Jesus died for. So I got baptized without my parents knowing it, and then at the age of 16, I had to come out as a Christian to my 3 activist gay parents. And they kicked me out afterwards. Yeah, now you don't want to laugh. You're like, crap, we shouldn't have laughed, sorry. No, but hear me out on this. Don't feel bad about it. It is funny now. It was weird then, but it's funny now. When I go speak to students, at conferences and events, I'll have LGBTQ students say, you have no idea what it's like to be rejected for who you are. I'm like, actually, I do. And you know what? The oppression and pain that you feel never gives you permission to return that pain and oppression on somebody else or the person that hurts you. I wish that my parents, obviously were following Jesus back then, I wish that they had taught me about sexuality. My wife and I, we had to start with our kids when they were very young, because of grandma, grandpa. So here's some quick things. I'm going to be doing a breakout after this and helping people understand how do you have conversations about truth and sexuality without shaming people? How do you stand up for God's word without making people feel bad? So I'm going to go more in depth in my breakout. But here are just some quick things for you as you think about talking to your kids, talking to your niece and nephew, your grandkids, or your friend kids when you have the parents' permission in a non-creepy way, okay? First and foremost, you need to realize what phase of life your kids are in. A lot of parents are not intentional about this because kids are in a different phase when they're in preschool, than elementary school, than middle school, than high school. They're asking different questions, they're expecting different things, and they're thinking various thoughts about themselves that are different from the previous phase. Okay, so for instance, in middle school, they're asking questions like, who are my friends? Who likes me? And if you really want to reach your middle schoolers, you know how you do? Create really good experiences. Because those memories will last forever. When they get to high school, they're asking questions. You need to let them question things and engage them, not get mad at them for asking questions. When they're in preschool, you're like a guardian. When they are in elementary school, you're like a teacher. Middle school, you're like a warden, right? You lock them in a closet until they get to high school. They smell. They're like an amoeba that you love, but you don't know what to do with. They get to high school, they're asking, who am I? Is this really what I believe? And your job is to be more of a coach, more of a mentor. And then 18, they move out, you celebrate. And now you're more of a friend. There are so many parents who are still acting like a teacher, like their kids were when they're in elementary school and their kids are in high school. And you wonder why you have issues. Now, I'm not saying your kids aren't weird. Every teenager is weird. I lead a high school small group at my church. My kids are weird, okay? They're redeemed because of my wife. She's a muy caliente Latina. In her wildest dreams, she had no idea that her knight in shining armor would be a cross between Gru, Dr. Evil, Fester, and Charlie Brown right here. This is her eye candy she wakes up to every morning. She's a lucky lady. But every kid is weird. And you know what? That's okay. But you've got to learn how to correspond with the kid based on what phase of life they're in. Here's the second thing you need to do. Listen. Listen, listen, listen. Some of you need to do that. Look, I know you're going to heaven. I know you know the Bible better than me. You've been a Christian since God was a boy. I get that. I'm glad. God bless you. But some of y'all when somebody comes to you with a problem, you know what you need to do? Don't talk, just listen. Like, it's so annoying when I talk to somebody and they're like, well, I went through that. You know what? I don't want to hear it. I have no filter sometimes because I have ADHD. I'll just say, can you stop talking and let me talk? That's why I came here. I don't say that to Amy, my wife. Everybody else. But you need to listen because people feel respected when they feel listened to. And some of the times it's just listen to your kids and not saying very much. And when you listen, you actually learn more, okay? Here's the third thing you need to do. Graciously share what you believe, okay? The Bible, the gospel is offensive to all of us, right? If it's not, you need to re-examine your life. It's offensive to me all the time because there's a gravitational pull towards self inside of all of us. Some people call it human nature, I call it sin, that we all have to deal with. And it offends me because I think the world would be better if it was run the way I want it to run. I tell people all the time, everything in America will be better when I run all three branches. Right? We all think, well, I would have done it differently. No, I would have messed up. Well, if I was in the Garden of Eden, well, it would have been worse. Graciously, just because the gospel offends doesn't mean we have to offend people. Let the gospel do the offending and where it needs to, and we need to take the posture of empathy and grace. Remember, be countercultural, not anti-cultural. There's a big difference. Jesus ran countercultural to not only the secular culture of his day, but also the religious leaders of his day. Be countercultural, not anti-cultural. And here's the last thing. Please listen to this. Listen. Learn how to ask really good questions. The average person doesn't know how to ask good questions. My wife does. She's a therapist. Like, they have to. If you're a teacher, an attorney and you're a litigator in court, you have to ask good questions, okay? Most of us don't know how to. My wife wasn't always a therapist. She used to be a teacher and then she married me and I think I pushed her this way somehow. But instead, like if you have kids, for instance, you pick them up from school. Don't say, how's your day? You have fun? No? Is everybody nice to you? Yeah? Good? All right. What do you want to do when we get home? Say, hey, what's your favorite thing about today? What's your favorite conversation? Is there something you learned that you didn't know before? And usually the answer is no. Okay? What refreshed you? Or play this game. What bored you the most today in school? What did you hate the most? Oh, well, so you want to get a conversation going, ask that question. I do it all the time. What did your English teacher do today that was weird? Oh, he had to go outside and touch bark and then write an essay on it. And I'm not making that up, by the way. When you ask questions, you'll realize you'll be shocked at how much you get. And here's why we're doing all this, okay? You want to create an environment with your kids where their identity in Christ is not in competition with their sexuality. Our society is run by false dichotomies right now, where people think, I don't have a voice at all unless I'm an extremist. Our society values feelings and reactions and undervalues logic and truth. When it was Augustine, the church father, that said, the mind and the will must never be pitted against each other. You need to set an example of what it is to treat people well and set an example to your kids that there is a difference between acceptance and agreement. We are called by God to accept everyone, to love them where they're at. It doesn't mean we agree with every position, every relationship they're in, or anything like that. How you talk to your kids about sexuality matters. And real quick, I was senior pastor in Dallas, Texas for a while because we've all got to live in purgatory. Well, it's a hostile environment. Jerry Jones is there and Mark Cuban, and it's flat and humid, and there are snakes. They have great restaurants. If your goal is to gain a lot of weight, move to Dallas. Great Brazilian steakhouses. And so my parents moved there separately, my mom and dad of one another, when we moved there. Then they both started attending my church, even though they knew what I believed. And then at the ages of 69, 70, they gave their lives to Jesus Christ. Hear me out on this. It is never too late to talk to anybody about sexuality. There is no time like right now. Thank you very much.